a podcast for dads who love music, made by dads who love music. And now, your hosts, Josh and Joe.
This episode is a continuation of the previous episode on concerts. We initially were planning to release the whole thing as one episode, but then realized it was going to be way too long. So instead, we cut it up into two more manageable parts. On this episode, we'll be talking about some of our most memorable concert experiences, as well as ranking our top 10 favorite concerts. The idea for this discussion came from a recent viral Facebook trend where people have been listing their favorite concerts and other memorable ones they attended. While we discussed some of our concert experiences in previous episodes, we wanted to dive a little bit deeper, as well as discussing some of the challenges of going to concerts once kids come into the picture. So now it's time for us to discuss our personal concert history. Life as a single person is totally different to go to concerts than life even as someone involved in a relationship, and then especially when you have kids and kids at different ages. So, Joe, you have two kids, one who's a full-fledged teenager, another that is a preteen. So,
believe it.
What was your life like before kids going to concerts, and then what were the challenges as when you got married and your son was born, and then as they were growing up and all that kind of stuff?
Sure. Well, it was obviously, like you said, it was much easier going to any show I wanted before marriage and children, for sure. And I have an Excel sheet of all my concerts that I've attended that I have up that I'm going to reference during this. But as I go through the years, there was a dramatic decrease in concerts attended in the late 2007, 8, 9, 10 period. Yeah, it's really hard. You have to find a babysitter. Also, money is a huge factor too. Money gets tight quick. Concerts got more expensive. So, I really had to pick and choose for a lot of years. Just, I go, wow, I only went to 4 shows this one year, or 5 shows, 3 shows sometimes. So got way harder. Luckily, I always had my parents around and my in-laws and a lot of other people helping out, which definitely helped. But between work and then you throw work in there, work schedule, obviously just a lot harder. And even we're all hoping now, it's kind of weird, of course, now with the pandemic, but once we get out of this, I am definitely ready to roll with going to any concert. And I'll just figure it out. Children, no children, money. It's just I'm going to these shows one way or another.
Jonesing for them. Yeah,
Jonesing.
I know that for me, even before my son was born, well, definitely when my son was born, but I was definitely cutting back on shows, and I'd have to sometimes, tell my now wife, hey, I want to go to this show. Do you want to come, or can I, how does this work with your schedule? And then definitely when my son was born, before the pandemic, it was the amount of shows, like you said, just kind of dropped. I went to maybe 2 shows, 3 shows. I mean, on top of that, I was playing in a cover band, so that even ate into more of my me time for music.
Exactly. I was also playing in a band too, so that took up a lot of the nights out.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and nowadays, even not say that it wasn't expensive in the mid 2000s, but now it's concerts are just, it's insane. To get a ticket, a $35 ticket is super cheap these days. And that's I love going to concerts, but now I really have to pick and choose, not only because of time, but definitely money. And, but I mean, Steve, I don't know about you. Have you had those ebbs and flows with concert going, throughout your life?
Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny, as you guys are mentioning, as you get older and in general, and obviously having responsibilities and kids, recently, but this has happened a couple times that I've seen it kind of go semi-viral. There's always a tweet where they're like, all right, guys, after this pandemic, the last set's not going past midnight, or, you know what I mean? It's all that kind of thing. People are yeah, exactly. I've been to so many shows where I'm oh my, if this band goes on at midnight tomorrow, I'm ruined. I'm ruined.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't even have kids to worry about. I'm just in that mood of all right, I want to see concerts, but I don't want it to last till 2, 3 in the morning. I probably would have been way gung-ho to do.
What's interesting about New York, and one thing I love about New York, especially in the summertime, because I'm not someone who loves staying up late, because I always wake up early no matter what, and I'm always groggy and I
Sure.
hate like feeling like that. So I prefer shows that end earlier. So one of the things I personally love about New York during the summer is that all the outdoor shows have to end at 10 o'clock. It's
Right.
a sound order, or most. Like sometimes they will get
most.
like
Yeah.
a permit. But I remember, all the Central Park Summer Stage shows that I've ever been to, they open the gates at 5 and they start at like 6, like before the
Wow.
sun is even down. And then
Yeah.
they end by 10. When I saw D'Angelo at Forest Hill Stadium, he was in the middle of playing, was it Untitled? Like the super famous one with the video where he's like naked and stuff like that. He was playing that. He was singing that like and faded out because it had to end at 10 o'clock.
Oh, that's awesome.
Huh.
But for someone like me who wants to be home at a decent hour so I can get some sleep, it's great. But with that kind of concept in mind, has your preference of the venue or the style of venue changed over time, like general admission versus seated versus I don't know.
I'll always take, like, I think standing you can't beat. It's a pain in the ass sometimes. But I know at seated shows, we were talking before we started recording about a show I went to, Jack White at Radio City Music Hall, one of his solo tours. And he was not feeling the vibe, nor was I. We're in the back. And I remember I was like, yeah, everyone's sitting. Even in the front, they were sitting. I'm like, get up. Like, this is a rock and roll show.
Up.
And he was trying to get people to like really, that's what he got annoyed with. And I don't
That's what he did in Brazil.
Became
he
a
said,
story.
you guys can stand up now. Cause like, it's weird to him.
Well,
I was like, say something. You can yell at the crowd for not feeling it. Like, you're at a rock show. This isn't an opera. This is Radio City, but like, stand up.
Right.
And he ended the show a little early, and then the crowd turned. And then the curtains turned, and it got ugly quick. So,
well, there are some actual theaters that have rules about people standing up. Like I remember being at a Medeski Martin Wood show in the Morristown Theater. I was with my friend and we were front row, and there was like a space, like almost where the pit was supposed to be. And these kids came up and were dancing in front of the stage, and the ushers kept pushing them back. And it was like, for me, as someone who's sitting in the front row trying to enjoy the show, it's great because I don't have these smelly hippie kids like, dancing in front of me. But at the same time, it's kind of lame. And there have been times where I've been in theaters and I've been the one standing up and being, the dick about like, standing up in front of the people behind me. I'm like, no, man, this is a rock and roll show. Let's stand up.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
When I saw the last show I went to, Wilco, it was kind of like that. It was at Radio City Music Hall and people were standing up and down. And it was the large venues. There's some great large venues, but I don't understand how people can enjoy a show at an outdoor stadium. Like to me, I've never been to one because it's like, I can't conceptually understand how the sound can be good, how you can feel connected to the show. Like it's one thing to see like Rush or Paul McCartney in an arena setting where it's like a huge extravaganza. Like, and even that is like much more intimate than being, in the upper left nosebleed of like, MetLife Stadium to see like someone so tiny. But
there were some stadium shows that I went to, especially when I was more in high school, when I was just starting to go to concerts. There was always an arena or a stadium. I saw Metallica at the old Giant Stadium. It was fine. I saw Green Day during the American Idiot tour. They kind of ended that whole like whirlwind, 3-year like marathon tour at a show at Giant Stadium. And I went with my wife and her 2 teenage nephews at the time. They were really into Green Day. I saw Green Day many times at very small places. I was like, all right, I'll go. But this is going to be like Josh was saying. But I was very impressed because they really, it depends on the band. If the band really
work the crowd,
embraces the bigness of the stadium, and Billy Joe, that tour especially, really morphed into like almost like a Freddie Mercury-esque frontman. He had like at one point a cape. At one point, he's always like running up. There was like long catwalks.
Yeah.
There was fireworks at the end of the show. They really made it like, they have a ton of hits. Like you kind of knew every song. It was like a big like crowd pleaser song. So depends on the band, who really embraces it. Some bands just stand there like, no, you're in a stadium. You better like do something. Like I saw the Black Keys, a band I'll mention later in our favorite shows. But one of my least favorite shows was seeing them on their last or 2 tours ago at Madison Square Garden. We're all the way back in the back of the arena. And I was so bored. And I was like, Yeah, they're playing like they did when I saw them, at a club in New York. And now you're in MSG. Like, you got to spruce it up a little bit. I know you're trying to keep it real, but like,
Right.
Yep.
Dan Auerbach isn't like the most, dynamic, like front man running around. Like,
No.
And I think, there's a couple of thoughts that are going through my head. One is like that, like, I feel like there are certain bands because either the crowd or the atmosphere that can do a great arena show. Like
U2.
Yeah, well, U2.
I saw many times.
Yeah,
I saw in a stadium. It was unbelievable.
Well, yeah, they would
They're
be
like the
their
ultimate.
band that's perfect. Yeah, but I was
Perfect.
surprised when Adam was talking about, and you brought up the White Stripes show at Madison Square Garden, because to me, I can't see like a duo like that, or even the Black Keys. They had two other guys I think playing with. I didn't go see that show because to me it's like I'm not spending the money to see a band that I've seen like in such a small venue where they just crush and like it wouldn't feel cool to me. It's just, it's one of those things, thinking about these big venues. It's kind of like when I talked about my musical taste. I'm very specific about what I like.
You're very specific. Yes.
I had a very bad experience, or have had some bad experiences in the outdoor shows in the lawn section. It's, to me,
that to me is worse than like a stadium. Yeah. That seems like you're really out of the vibe.
I've had some rough lawn experiences.
Yeah.
The last time I went to the lawn was in 2001. I went to see Aerosmith with a whole bunch of people, my cousins, my brother, some friends. I think Jay and Graham Graham was definitely there, and Jay, I think, was there too. When Aerosmith was on the main stage at PNC, I felt very disconnected. I was so amped for the show. Like, I was really excited. I hadn't got the Just Push Play album, but like I was listening to Southside Sanity all the time. So I was like gearing up for this live show. But then they came out and they had a separate stage in the lawn, and they did like 4 songs. I remember they did Toys in the Attic, like out there. And it was like, that was really cool because you're much closer and you felt like much more connected to the band. To me, it's like there are specific bands like U2 I saw at the old Continental Airlines Arena.
Nice.
I was in the last row in the corner. Wow. And it was still an amazing show.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah.
That was an amazing show. And like, they're a 4-piece band, but and it wasn't even like the lights weren't even crazy. It was like just their ambiance.
Yes.
But then, I saw
you gotta give Bono credit. You gotta give him, he does it. He gets you, he reaches to the back. They always say like Bono could reach to the back of the arena or the stadium, and like he really does.
Yeah. But like I saw Clapton at MSG a couple of years ago, and I saw Clapton and McCartney like almost like weeks away from each other. Clapton, he was great, but it was like the energy wasn't there. And then McCartney, he's still old, but like the whole show, the whole atmosphere is like something totally different.
Sings along.
Yeah. And it's really cool. So I don't know. I prefer personally, like my favorite types of shows now are, smaller, intimate places or good theaters, like where I can get solid seats. And I know that like almost no matter where I sit, I'll have a pretty good vantage point and I'll have, good sound and stuff like that. I know that I've always kind of been like that way, but now as I get older, like I don't want to deal with people pushing me and shoving me, like, to get to the front. I saw a fight almost break out at a Toad the Wet Sprocket concert with a pregnant lady and somebody else who was pushing to get to the front. And like,
amazing,
and I personally almost got into a fight with this kid at a Ben Folds show because he was just kept pushing people.
Really? I hate people who do that. I hate that. Always that one.
My cousin Graham is friends with both Steve and Joe. I've been to several shows with him. He always tells me, Josh, you got to go down on the floor. And I hate when I'm there. Sometimes it's great. If there's a great balcony, if there's a balcony where I can just chill.
If you have a good vantage,
and you sit, and you can connect in that way. It's great. Like, there's nothing like being right up front, even though the sound is terrible on a small stage and you're like looking up at the person. But there's also something so nice about having no one in front of you. You're right by the soundboard and you just like have your own, it's like your own private concert almost with that crowd experience.
Yeah. There was one show you mentioned being in a good vantage point in the balcony. There's a venue, Terminal 5 in New York City, there's 2 like balconies. There's 2 levels. If you're ever go to a show there, all the way on the left side is the VIP section, which I always, I'm always looking up like, who's up there? How do you get into that VIP section? So I went to see Iggy and the Stooges, 2008. Definitely one of my favorite all-time concerts. Super into them. And actually, Graham was supposed to go with me. The husband of a girl that I was sort of working with at the time is in the music industry, and he said, I'll go with you. So we went, and then he got us in that VIP section in Terminal 5, and we were all the way, the closest table, there was like a little table there. So we were actually over like the stage. And to see Iggy Pop from that vantage point and to see the crowd, you can see like the front of the crowd too. So almost behind him was unbelievable. It was like I was like, my mouth was open the whole time. Like,
legendary.
Holy shit. You could just see him in his element. And there's nobody like Iggy Pop. You leave that show exhausted just watching him. Henry Rollins he always talks about that. You know, you think you're in shape, you think you're doing, and then you watch Iggy go on stage.
At like,
and he's totally right.
He's like, and he's in his mid 60s or like 70s.
I know.
And
Yes.
like,
Still in good shape.
And
crazy.
you're like, why am I tired? Like you feel physically exhausted. I saw him twice. But that show, I'll never forget. You're like, I feel physically exhausted. I don't know what he's jumping in the crowd. He's falling over. He kicks over the monitor, you know, the amps. He's just like, his pants are basically down almost to his knees at one point, you know, falling. It's like, it's that danger. You're like, oh my God, is he going to make it? Is his hip going to go?
Like,
next? What's happening?
Yeah.
And it's awesome. So yeah, that's definitely true. If you're in a good vantage point in the balcony, that's a good spot.
certain crowds being on the floor is fine. Like when I saw Elvis Costello at the now defunct Nokia Theater / Sony Theater, whatever it was, the one in Midtown, right in Times Square. My friend and I were on the floor. We were like, 4 or 5 rows from the stage. I went to go to the bathroom and I came back and nobody was bothering me about going back to my spot. No one was pushing. It was an older crowd, but it was like the best experience being in a general admission show. It was like, amazing. This is fantastic. It's like, no, this is my spot. And people were totally fine with you going back to your spot. But, and so many times it's like, it's a tussle. Like you go and get a beer and it's like, you're just never coming back. Or like you have guys
have
walking
a person
over,
to hold. Yeah.
Or you have people walking through you and spilling their beers and stuff on them. Or it's like, my friend's up there and it's like it's like 3 guys are behind them.
Yes.
And they're just, or like it's the one hot girl who's like has a daisy chain of people going to the front.
Yes. Oh my God.
It's one of those things. But I mean, all of us love live music. There's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. It's a weird time, but I cannot wait to go back to seeing shows again. It's going to be amazing. Let's get into some of this history. Who wants to go first to discuss your list of concerts?
I'll go first. I gotta start off with my first concert that I ever went to was Aerosmith during the Get a Grip tour at the Meadowlands in New Jersey. So this is like 93. I was either 8th grade or freshman in high school. They were my favorite band at the time, so it was like really a perfect first concert for me. I still love them, but especially at that time, I was like super into Aerosmith. They were massive. Get a Grip was, massive, huge. I knew every song. I was just like, that was it. They were everything. And, classic arena band. Four Non Blondes opened up. It's pretty funny.
Nice.
Linda Perry, led by Linda Perry. But it was a great show. And then for the next 4 years, or basically through high school, my next shows were all just arena shows. AC/DC at MSG, Van Halen also at the Meadowlands, Metallica a couple times. So I never really went to even a club show until I got to college in New York City. The first club show I went to, I think, was Local H at Bowery Ballroom. Might have been that.
Wow.
And then also saw the Donnas and the Mooney Suzuki at this place, Tramps, which is sort of a legendary place that Adam mentioned earlier. It was amazing. It's a whole other experience, just like Josh was saying. Like a lot of people have that experience when you're younger. You go to these arena shows and Steven Tyler looks like an ant. I see the scarf on the microphone. I guess that's him. But then you go, wow, I'm in a club. They're right there. They're only like 50 feet away. Yeah. Once you go to those club shows, it's totally different. Yeah. My college years, like the late 90s into the early 2000s. Were probably all of a lot of my favorite shows. That's when I was going to most of the shows in my history. I saw the White Stripes early on at Bowery Ballroom. I saw that early 2000s period of the, that rock scene I was really into with the Strokes. So I went to the sort of the infamous Radio City show. Speaking of Radio City, it was White Stripes and The Strokes. They did a one-off show in New York and then another one in Detroit. They were both really like peaking at that time. Like they were the bands of the moment. And there's a book, Meet Me in the Bathroom, that documents that whole scene. And that concert is sort of considered like the ground zero like moment of that whole like 2000s, mainly New York City like garage rock thing. So that was an epic show. Again in college we saw Cypress Hill on Halloween night. It was a pretty crazy show for a lot of reasons.
Imagine.
A lot of it's a blur, but I do have some memories of like we're freaking out, just yelling a lot. For one night they were my favorite band or something. Like they all of a sudden like they're the greatest band in the world. Went to college in Montclair State, and this is at Roseland Ballroom, by the way. And I think it was a Sunday night or something, but we went to catch the train back to Montclair. It was shut down.
Oh.
And it was tough. We had to somehow, this is pre-cell phones. Somehow I think we called one of our friends. He had to come pick us up in the city. And, we weren't really in the most stable condition at the time. So it was like 1 a.m. Yeah, that was a memorable one. But also seeing Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes during that time was 2000. At Jones Beach was basically like, I always say it was like close to seeing Led Zeppelin as I ever will get. Seeing the Yeah Yeah Yeahs are one of my favorite bands. Also from that early 2000s, I saw them at Mercury Lounge, which is a super small club that the three of us have been at, played at. They became huge, almost like an arena band. They're huge.
Yep.
That was great. Saw them a couple times during that period. Sleater Kinney around that time as well. They were like just really kick-ass. Seeing Black Keys. Speaking of the Black Keys, now the opposite experience was the first time I saw them was at Maxwell's in Hoboken. Really like a game-changing show for me and Josh's cousin Graham, who were in a band together, and that like it was one of those shows where like you don't even look at the person that you're with, you're just in so awe, and then the show ends and you just like turn around, give each other the look like, oh, what did we just see? Yeah. That was one of those shows, especially just at the time. A lot of that music we had not heard for a few years. That was, I think, with them and the Stripes.
Probably came out.
Yeah, and we saw Patrick Carney parking. I remember in that parking garage that we'd always park at. He was like running to the, back to the club, and they're standing back at the merch table, and we bought the CD. But that's why I think that scene. I think some people don't get why those bands are like as great as they are. But like people forget in 1999 and in '98, the rock scene was horrible.
There was no place to play. Like for
There was
me
nowhere-
growing up,
yeah,
there's no
there
place
was no
for
scene or anything.
Yeah, there's nowhere.
No.
There was a punk scene. There was a punk ska scene that was going on. At
Yeah,
least in New
like kind,
Jersey.
yeah.
Yeah.
So even that was like, came and went, Scott
Yeah.
sort of was quick. So that's why when those bands came out, I was just like, yeah, this is what I really like. Bluesy rock music. Then there's also clunker shows, like I call them. I mean, there's a couple of shows. I don't want to just list all, not everything was amazing, they go to. There's, of course, shows that are like, what did I just see or what just happened? And one I was talking with you guys before was it's going to see Lenny Kravitz this is like the Fly Away summer when Fly Away was on every 3 seconds on radio.
Yeah.
Super pumped up to go. We're like early college, tailgating, pre-gaming for like, we were one of the first cars in the parking lot at PNC Bank Art Center. Memorial weekend, it's 100 degrees out. A lot of substances, things are going around. We're like partying. Black Crowes are opening up. So we're all pumped up. Black Crowes play. And then Lenny Kravitz comes out, plays 3 songs that I never heard. And he leaves the stage. And then he basically passed out backstage. And after about 15, 20 minutes or so, they announced the show's over. And again, the crowd completely turned. You had like a packed house. Yay, Lenny, to like, boo, we're going to kill you. The torches were out in 1 second.
It
was
actually
terrible.
made the newspaper the next day because I
It
remember
did,
I
right?
remember
Yeah.
hearing about it from my dad who read it in the newspaper and like I that to me is like insane. Like I do
It's
remember
insane
it was
that no one
yeah.
really talks about that anymore either. Like,
Yeah.
and we always were waiting for him to give us our, show back. We never got that like return show. So that was definitely one. Jack White we mentioned earlier was like sort of he played the whole show. It was a shortened set, but he was not feeling the crowd. He didn't do an encore. The curtains closed and like completely like crowd turned on him. I mean, I don't have too many of those kind of stories. It's funny though. You hear a lot of stories from like the 70s when bands were so messed up on
my dad's
drugs.
Led Zeppelin experience.
Yeah,
Right.
Or
You have an off night.
My mom has like a concert that has come up. I've heard other people talk about where Eric Clapton, speaking of Eric Clapton, was in the midst of his, drug haze, heroin addiction in like 74, maybe 73. He played in New Jersey,
The Capitol Theater.
like maybe Capitol Theater, something like
Passaic,
that.
probably,
Was
yeah.
like totally zonked out. Played like a half hour, and like even that was very rough. Again, the crowd, she's like, I'll never forgive him for that. He's like terrible. You're all pumped
Yeah.
up to see, but there were so many stories we read of that now. A lot of shows are probably very close to just collapsing. I mean, you read about how much drugs these older
Yeah.
bands are on.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are basically some of the, my favorite shows. Some also LCD Sound System I wanted to throw in there.
Yes.
Me and Steve were at a couple together.
Oh my God.
I saw them 3 times. I talk about also a show like great being on the floor.
That was a
concert
good one.
for Josh.
Everyone
like,
danced.
Not too rough.
Everyone
like,
danced.
yeah, it's all like happy, dancing, like vibing out. Like no one's like moshing or anything like
Yeah.
that. They're just amazing. Some bands, you don't understand why it's so great live. Like James Murphy is like, he's very divisive. He just literally just stands there. He doesn't dance. He doesn't really do anything. He just holds the mic up. It's very like robotic, like a lot of this stuff, but you're like, just the songs are great and they're perfect live.
He's got a good band too.
I would say one of the best, like just crowd feelings, like the feeling in
Agreed.
the crowd was that LCD Sound System, the passion. from
Dance Yourself
everybody.
Clean in Wilmot
That-
was like a huge highlight for me.
Yeah,
Oh
that
my
opening,
God.
the opening of Terminal
Dude.
5-2. Which is this, they have this song Dance Yourself Clean, which is the first, I think it's like 3 minutes, is extremely quiet.
Slow build.
And then after they open the show, and then there's this massive drop, and everyone just goes like ape shit, and it's just great. And then the show, takes off from there. So
Nice.
And then this, lastly, I have to mention when I went to the All Point East Music Fest in London in 2019 Memorial Weekend, and that definitely was one of the highlight concert experiences I ever had.
The
And
video
talk
footage
about-
I saw was crazy from you.
Yeah, me and Graham were pretty close to the Raconteurs and the Strokes were the two main headliners. But we saw like Parquet Courts, who we love. Courtney Barnett was there. Interpol was there. Johnny Marr from the Smiths. It was all rock. And talk about like night and day crowds, New York City to London. I was standing in that field. It was in a big field. And it was like, these are my people. I was saying like, where are you? Like, this is what I want to meet, like these people. Yep. Because they all knew every word like I do to like bands like Parquet Courts who are pretty quirky and, you know, known, but they knew everything. The Raconteurs didn't even have their new album out. They just had the 2 singles and they knew every word. Like it was like, you know, their biggest hit. And then the Strokes are another one who, you know, if you're not into the Strokes, it's hard to sort of get people into the Strokes. And I watched video of them, like live video, and I'm like, yeah, you know, Julian is just not doing much. He's just sort of standing there. The band just sort of stands there.
Yep.
But man, when they came out, the crowd went absolutely insane. We talk about pushing, Josh.
Yeah.
We were in a great spot. And even I was like, I don't know, Grant, like this is going to get bad. I didn't know how bad it was going to get us. The moment they kicked into the first song, the whole crowd pressed forward. And we're like, whoa, we lost our, you know, you can't even touch the ground like that. And I don't like that. Some people can do that, but I don't like that feeling. We immediately were like, get out of here. We got to get out of here. So we just moved right to the left out of there. But then we had a great experience the whole rest of the show. But just the vibe in London in that crowd was like unmatched. I just wish that's one thing about being in New York. We get to see everybody, but there's a lot of, especially lately too.
Yep.
I got to say, like, I've been very annoyed with a lot of crowds. You know, seeing the Chili Peppers at MSG a couple years ago, I was so annoyed. It was a great show from them, but the crowd sucked. The crowd sucked. People are like talking. People are, you know, worried about their drinks. And even in the front, we're like, what are you guys doing? Like, be focused on the band. Like, there's too much distractions. People aren't into, like, it's just like,
too many phones, too many live streaming while the concert's going on.
That's why
there's a video on YouTube of the Chili Peppers playing MSG, same place during the Dave Navarro 1 Hot Minute, like 95. And it's completely different. People are crowd surfing. And you're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, that's the way it should be. Like our show, what the hell, you know, what was going on? Yeah. So that's one thing I hope crowds get a little more passionate after, you know, COVID goes away. We're like, appreciate them more. So the band I've seen the most, I believe, is the Black Keys. I've also seen, Henry Rollins, not in a music. I've seen his spoken word, more than anybody. It's just the best. I tell everybody.
I saw him at Town Hall with you. It was a great,
yes, that was
show.
when we went to, yes. And that was taped for like a special for IFC. That was, I love Rollins. Most surprising band, like opening band, I didn't really know about. One that comes to mind is the Screaming Females from New Jersey. They opened for the Dead Weather, which is one of Jack White's side bands. Also at Terminal 5, and they really killed it. That's also like another topic we could talk about, is like just bands that you didn't even know. And then you walked in and you're like, whoa, like who's this band? I did have tickets to see Rage Against the Machine for last summer. Yep. I believe I'm still going whenever it's supposed to happen in August. We'll see. And then just, it's classic concerts that I missed or wish I could have been there for. One that always comes to mind is The Clash, especially they had this run of show at Bonds in New York City, which has become this like really legendary like moment of time in like the early 80s, New York City. I think they did like 17 shows in a row, like something ridiculous because they were so about the fans. I think they had like 5 originally and everything sold out, and they had all these other fans couldn't get in. So they were like, we're going to play for the people and we're going to make sure our fans see us. So we're okay. They played like a ridiculous amount, 17 in a row. But a lot of people older than us who I know or have worked with were at these shows, and they were like, it was, just amazing. And they had, like Grandmaster Flash opened some of the shows, and they really had like innovative people. And the crowd famously booed like Grandmaster Flash, and Joe Strummer had to come out and like yell at the crowd, like, give this guy some, respect. But it was like so far ahead of the time, curve that like these white like rock crowds are like, what the hell is this? Like, what is he doing with the, turntable?
It's like when the Monkees fans booed Hendrix, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, so. The Clash would have to be right up there. Of course, and speaking of Hendrix, Hendrix If you go back to like the 60s, I mean, early Led Zeppelin, Ramones, or like, CBGBs, Guns N' Roses, like at the Ritz in New York City. It was like a famous show right when they were like exploding. I mean, of course, so many bands. And then a lot of bands over the last 20 years, I look back, I'm like, why didn't I go to that? Why didn't I go to that? Why didn't I go to that?
Well, like as we were saying before, life gets in the way.
Or just like, sometimes you don't even really know about a band, or you kind of like, you don't get into the band till later, and you're like, oh, like really? I should
have seen him in a small venue.
So like, I look back, and when with time we were single and younger, it's like, I should have been going like every night to something. It's cheaper. Not
I should have been going to concerts
shows.
And buying vinyl at their shows, like
and
ridiculous.
and that too. But I mean, the club shows are cheap, especially back then. It wasn't that much. We could have been going way more. So I mean, that's basically my concert experience. Basically, I was seeing shows in New York City and New Jersey. Seeing Paul I used to work sort of with Paul McCartney. I helped produce a documentary many moons ago where we followed him on tour, and I got to go to the San Jose, California shows. Speaking of that, I just remembered another work-related one was seeing the Police.
I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Crap. Seeing the Police at Whiskey A Go-Go, Los Angeles, to announce the reunion, that was unbelievable. That was... I wish my phone, I had a cell phone, but it was like sort of
definitely no smartphones,
pre-smartphone. Ugh.
I saw them on MSG on that tour, and I was behind the stage at MSG, so it was like not the greatest spot. And they were solid, and I was so hyped, but it was like, I'm sure like seeing them in such a small venue would have been like just amazing.
I was right next to I was like backstage. I was like on the side of the stage watching Stuart Copeland. Like, I can't believe I'm watching Stuart Copeland right now. This is happening. Questlove was in the crowd. Taylor Hawkins was in the crowd. Like, all these people wanted to, especially drummers, wanted to see the Police. So, but that was just, of course, like a 3-song thing. But,
amazing.
What a concert to see. I'm looking at my list now, and actually it has picked up in the last few years. Yeah. So there is hope, Josh. As your son gets a little older, I've noticed I don't know if it's just me going like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to things, but it gets easier. The kids get a little older. It's not as drastic to like leave them, when they're babies or toddlers. So,
yeah. My first concert was a kind of a random thing. My parents were really cool about taking us to early concerts. And my dad, I think through friends of friends, got tickets to something called the Moondog Coronation Ball, which was the Alan Freed, who coined the term rock and roll, did like a yearly concert, and they honored it. But Jerry Lee Lewis played as like the main headliner, and there were smaller bands like the Platters and a few others. And it wasn't a great first concert experience. I had seen, of course, like my friends' bands play in like small church venues, things in my hometown. But this was like a real concert. But I look back on that, and it was, it was like almost a basketball arena show. So I don't really remember it. It doesn't hold that like magic for me. My first like show in that scenario was a few years later. My parents took us to see REM and Wilco. And that was that. Yeah. Amazing show. And it was at Cleveland's open air venue. The amazing part of that show was they did an encore, and they did It's the End of the World as We Know It. And the whole concert, it like threatened rain. And when that song came on, it rained. It was on the Up tour. It was unreal.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, this is what concert's supposed to be. And my parents were cool about us like jumping around on the lawn and like going out and about, because my parents were huge REM fans, which was cool too. Yeah, that I think felt like my first concert. And Wilco, I remember seeing, but I don't remember it as in depth as REM, because I think REM to me was like larger than life.
Sure.
But the whole show, it was great. My last concert, which was in 2020, was this woman, Yola, who was, I think she's on Easy Eye Sound, but she had been produced by...
Yeah, Dan Auerbach produced her.
Dan Auerbach, yeah. And phenomenal concert, phenomenal show, small venue in Philly or outside of Philly, World Cafe. Great show to end on. Kind of looking forward to seeing more of her live, just to see what she's doing. But she was a small band, really good show. I did a little bit of like my list of best concerts. So I've kind of gone back and forth on this multiple times, but the reason why I still like list this concert as my number one is in the same vein of seeing a rock show and being like, this is an epitome rock show. This is what I want in a rock show. Mm-hmm. It was that concert with Soledad Brothers, Boogaloo Prayer, and Heartless Bastards. And not only because the lineup was kind of insane, it was in that era of 2006 where I think Sold Out Brothers had maybe played Appeal Session in like 2003. They were kind of building to like be the next White Stripes. So this show was kind of like the homecoming show in Toledo. But for me, the standout moment was the Boogaloo Prayer lead singer I'd mentioned in prior episodes. He kind of stood up the headlining band by being insanely drunk on whiskey and just going nuts on stage, doing a very amazing Iggy Pop, performance. And then the drummer flipping the bass drum to me. All these things were just like,
that is insane.
I can't believe I've seen this in my small venue in Toledo. And seeing, Heartless Bastards in an early iteration, and she just, totally killed it. So to me, I still think that's like my top, but I like it because it wasn't even historic per se. It just was amazing.
I saw that. I believe saw the Sold Out Brothers and Heartless Bastards in New York City. I think I saw both of them together.
Similar era, maybe.
I'm looking on my list. I'm like, I think I have this on here, but I know I was there unless it was. I think it was at Mercury Lounge too. I think so. Anyway,
oh man,
yeah, they were
phenomenal.
Both really good.
Yeah. My number two, I still have great memories of this, and Joe and I talk about it a lot, is the Raconteurs at Hammerstein. I just think that they were on the top of their game.
Totally.
Jack was like having his crazy banter, I think, to the next level.
Yes.
And just they slayed it. They jammed out a bunch of songs. They did a cover with the guy from Yeah Yeah Yeahs came out, Nick Sinner.
Nick Sinner, yep.
And just
that was cool.
Everything about
that was
the show.
A great show. You're right.
They
was really
they
awesome.
pulled out songs that they don't really play.
We had to put our phones in the bag, and we all said like, man, I wish all shows were like that.
Sure.
All shows.
Yeah.
Forget the phone. You don't need it.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I mean,
you don't need it.
For me, my rule has always been, I don't know if you guys do this too, I'll only take a couple snaps in the beginning and maybe a couple at encore, like a quick
one or
video.
two, exactly. Yes.
That's like my rule.
That's it.
Unless
Yeah,
it's
I
like
do
a song that
take
they
a couple,
never play, I just don't do it. Yeah.
I
So
know.
that's the only downside is I wish I'd had a couple jack shots or, Brendan Benson.
But then
going
the Raconteurs release on like Instagram, he'll say
Amazing
we have a
photos.
professional photographer who'll be taking way better pictures than you'll be taking. You can
True.
have them, you can do what you want, you can download them. And that's what I did. I saved a lot of them that
same.
next night. He was fired up that night. Remember he came out and was like, let's go. He was like really amped up for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, he started doing this like diatribe at one point where he was kind of like talking about,
Preacher.
look next to you. This is gonna be, he starts talking about like, what was it? Quantum physics. He got it was awesome. It was great. So great show. And then number 3, this is kind of a side little quick story, but I had wanted and debated seeing this show, Lindsey Buckingham coming to Town Hall, and it had been just after he had been basically booted from Fleetwood Mac. And so I was like, I really want to go. And I talked to my friend and everyone's just like, I don't know if I'm going to go. I don't know if I'm going to go. So I just put the feelers out. Like, I'm just like, if I'm meant to go to this show, I'm going to go to this show. And at random, Josh saw through a friend of a friend on Facebook or something.
No.
It
Was someone posted on the town Facebook page I have I have like tickets.
Amazing.
I need to just give them or whatever.
Just get rid of them. Yeah.
And so I was like, I know somebody who might want them. And
I thought I was gonna have to pay for the tickets through this guy. I was like, I'll pay whatever. I've always wanted to see Lindsey Buckingham play live, no matter what. And the guy goes, dude, they're free. They're yours. All I want you to do is 2 things. Number 1, have an amazing time. Number 2, tell me about the show. Like, what did he do? Explain it. I was like, I'll take notes. I don't care. Thank you so much. So I took a friend of mine, and of course he did I'm So Afraid and just like melted in my face. Just the entire show. His solo stuff is not always like my favorite stuff, but seeing it live, I think brought it to life. So that was just like an amazing show. And to see him at that age still solo and feel it, you know, and he made a couple comments about, you know, the divorce of the band and stuff like that. So it was interesting. Number 4, I still have great memories of those LCD shows. I list this as a historic show too for me, and that it was the retirement show before, you know, the retirement shows before they did the MSG show. And to me, I've seen that MSG performance and it's great. It's its own art, you know, thing and people getting into it. But the crowd felt so, I don't know what the word, like needy and like edgy, because they knew like this literally could be
this was it. Yes, this was it.
And so I think
felt it too. For sure.
Great show. And also too, Terminal 5 feels like, even though it's a venue that I have issues with as far as sound goes sometimes, vantage points, but for some weird reason, everybody, I think, if it was any other venue, I don't know if it would have been as good, if that makes sense. It felt like a rough and tumble venue that LCD Sound System had to play. So it was just great.
It's a warehouse. It's a giant warehouse.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big little venue. Yeah.
So those shows totally stick out to me. And then the last one I had to mention for me, as favorite shows, is I saw Pearl Jam the only time I'd seen live. And it was one of those outdoor venues, Germain Amphitheater in Columbus. And the reason why that show really stood out to me, no matter what, besides the fact that they played forever, was the night before or 2 nights before they were supposed to play in Cincinnati, but it got flooded out. So they knew that fans had done the multi-day ticket buy, and they were like, we're going to make up for this lost show. So they played extra long. They played 3 encores, and they also played Footsteps, which, except for MSG, playing Footsteps is like, for a Pearl Jam fan, are you kidding? Like, you saw Footsteps live? That was a huge deal. Everyone in the crowd was just like, holy shit.
I saw them at that tour as well, 2003. I just realized, I was looking at comparing my list. I saw them
awesome.
down in Camden. I looked up the set the other day, and they played like 2 or 3 encores. I remember it was like pretty epic.
It's amazing.
It was the day after July 4th. I think they did Rockin' in the Free World or something. Like, everybody was going nuts. Yeah, they're another one. Like, Eddie Vedder live is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
They're on my bucket list. I haven't seen them. I was pissed when my brother. I said I mentioned before on another episode how I was pissed that my brother and my dad went and saw them because my brother got tickets through the 10 Club when he was like 13 or whatever, and I just but they're on my bucket list.
Yeah, they're great.
It was serendipity. I knew that they would play a long show, but the fact that they like were trying to make up, it was respect to them for doing that, honestly. And then I've seen Sevendust, which you guys are like, what? And it's like, it's a band in high school that me and my friends, it was like our trip. We would go to Cleveland, we would drive and see Seven Dust. And to their credit, I will say that their last few albums I haven't been blown away by, but in their early stages, the energy of every band member, like, there's certain bands where, not a lot of them stand out. In this band, they all have this like big personality, and live, the energy is great and the crowd is going insane. So yeah, I've seen them 9 times.
Hey man, it is what it is.
My biggest surprise for sure was a friend and a PR guy invited me to see Phosphorescent in 2014 at Webster Hall. And I knew a couple songs. I knew Song for Zula, which I loved, but I didn't know anything else.
That song I knew.
And and I kind of had poo-pooed them as like a neo Bob Dylan, or like a, even like the War on Drugs kind of vibe. I thought this was going to be like a soft show. And I can't tell you, like, the whole show, I was just like jaw dropped. I was very impressed. And then my best surprise guest, I think I mentioned you guys before, is Neil Young. He came on stage at the Rock for Change with Dave Matthews Band. And he was kind of an unannounced guest, but we had heard in other shows he had been there. But to me, the reason why it made me and my friend literally start crying was he played Cortez the Killer with Dave, and just destroyed that song, destroyed the crowd. And there were people with us that were like, why are you crying? I'm like, they didn't know music enough. Like, we were like music super fans. And I was just like, it's fucking Neil Young. He played like 4 or 5 songs. He was, totally generous with the crowd, and it was great. So it stands out. My next concert is probably Rage at MSG, like in August, maybe. And then the ones that I wish I could see are obviously too many to mention, but I'm going to name ones that are ones I could have actually seen. So one that I actually did see and I left early was because my friends came out. We drove out to Cleveland, and it was the Family Values tour, and it was Stone Temple Pilots headlining, or like co-headlining with Korn. And I wasn't there to really see Korn. Like, I really wanted to see Stone Temple Pilots and a few of the other bands on the bill. And my buddy, he's like, I don't care. I'm over Stone Temple Pilots. And this was that tour that every show, Weiland was nude, like at the end of the show. It was just wild. Like, he was just crazy
that was
wild,
like a
man.
super jacked period.
It was.
Like 01.
Yeah. So I saw like 3 songs. I probably saw like Big Empty, and it was great. And then I had to leave, and I'm like, this is like a few years before, he really fell off the wagon. And so it was a huge, huge like regret, but it was one of those things where I'm like, what can you do? It sucked.
I was going to mention STP too. One of the best shows I ever saw was opening for the Chili Peppers 2 years before that, 99, summer of 99, when they were really just coming back from his troubles and jail time and everything. And like that 4 album was out, and they opened up and they just completely like destroyed. I remember. And then I saw them like the next 2002 or 3 at Hammerstein Ballroom in New York, and they were also amazing. Yeah, I was like this peak, good. Like you were saying. He was in like amazing shape, and he was like doing the whole dancing. I was like,
he was trying to prove himself, I think.
Totally.
Such a regret. Yeah. I had the White Stripes are a huge concert regret. I had seen, a bunch of other bands in that scene and in that world, but never got to see the Stripes. They'd always sold out in Detroit and Cleveland. And I was stupid. I was like, oh, fine, that's cool. And instead I should have drove to the venue and like scalped a ticket, or I should have done something. Always will regret, because we don't know if they'll ever tour again. Same thing with the Black Crowes. That iteration of that band, I doubt's ever gonna come back.
Yeah.
Unless some crazy.
That
would be huge.
Yeah.
If they, Yeah.
I can't they're not.
I think Gorman has burned all the bridges possible.
All the bridges.
All the bridges.
He made it clear.
Yeah, so for me, my very first concert, as I've said before, my dad was a huge concert goer, went, all the time. And we would take us to see, go to festivals and stuff like that every once in a while, bluegrass festivals or, whatever. My first like legitimate concert when I was really little was probably, I saw Raffi at least twice.
Amazing.
I mean, like, if you ever watch, as a parent, I'm sure if anyone watches any of his shows, he's an amazing performer.
He was big for us when we were kids, for sure.
So
I was honestly didn't know of Raffi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh.
I don't know. I was like, it missed me.
Yeah. And we saw like smaller shows and stuff like that. But my first real like quote unquote adult show was I saw Santana and Jeff Beck at the Paramount Theater at Madison Square Garden in 1995. Like I wanted to go because my dad always went with my uncle, who's like a huge Santana fan. And I remember at that time I had just like gotten really into Santana because I saw the Woodstock footage of Soul Sacrifice. Of course I didn't know anything, I didn't like Jeff Beck. Like I kind of knew of, he was playing like his 80s and 90s stuff, which I had no idea what was going on. And Santana, like I think I like knew like Oye Como Va or maybe like, Jingo, like those were like the only ones that like I could pick out, but that still was a cool experience. The last concert I saw was Wilco at Radio City Music Hall in October of 2019. That was I wish I went to the show the next night, which was at Brooklyn Steel, which they put on a much better show. We recorded it. The Radio City Music Hall show they were solid. They played a lot of stuff off the new album Ode to Joy, which if you haven't heard it, it's like a really low key, like slow burn album. So it's not a great live album for that environment. But when they played the rock and stuff, it was awesome. The loudest concert I ever saw was that Black Crowes show at the State Theater in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I didn't have earplugs. Rich Robinson and Audley Freed had literally huge stacks, and they just like, it was an explosion of sound. Like it was so loud.
Like
it was
feedbacky, kind of screechy.
No, just like so loud. You couldn't hear like the bass everything was loud, but it was still a fun show. Great show. The artist or band that I've seen the most is Ben Folds / Ben Folds 5. I've seen Ben Folds 5 times and Ben Folds 20 plus times in situations. Wow. I was a fanatic of Ben Folds 5 and then Ben Folds solo for several years. There was a summer 2004 where Ben Folds was touring with like Guster and Rufus Wainwright, and I had taken like a year off. I got burnt out from like my fanaticism, and then I got back into it, and I went to like 4 shows on that like one tour, like somehow. That's cool. But yeah, he is a great performer live, especially early on in his career. It's a lot of energy, and for me, I love his stuff. And I know that some of our friend group give me crap about it, but he was a life-changing artist for me. Ben Folds 5 was like my band growing up. It was like really like my special. It kind of, I heard before Brick, I heard Battle of Who Could Care Less on MTV, and it kind of just like broke my brain. It was like, this is what I want. This is like the music that I love. And the most surprising show for me was several. First one I put on there was the Tedeschi Trucks Band at the Apple Farm Arts and Music Festival. I went because I worked at that camp. Those of you who have heard the interview about the organization. But I went and I volunteered so I could get free tickets to go see the show. Dawes was playing. I was just getting into Dawes at the time. I kind of knew about Derek Trucks from Allman Brothers and stuff like that. And Susan Tedeschi's name, was always floating around. Mm-hmm. But when I saw them, I knew none of their stuff. And this was right after their first album came out. They just destroyed. And they're notoriously now one of the best live bands out there. And I have not been able to find time to go see them. I always kick myself. They always do a run at the Beacon and it sells out like, in no time. Another was the band Fun, which was, Jack Antonoff and Nate Roos. They were touring on their first album, and it was before they like exploded and, were playing at the Grammys and everything. At this really small club in Lawrence, Kansas, I had just gotten out there for grad school at this place called The Bottleneck, which I had ended up seeing several shows at. It was like amazing. But they were great because it's a small venue. Like Antonoff's other band, Steel Train, opened, and I kind of went in late. I think I bought tickets the day of, but they had like a full light show in this small club, and they were just super tight, and it was just a super fun show. And like the kids who were there, like there's a lot of teens and early 20 kids. Everyone like knew the lyrics, so it was like fun because the kids were like really into the show. Another amazing, surprising show was The Darkness. I saw The Darkness at the 930 Club in DC, which is a very small, it's a Bowery Ballroom-esque place. I remember I loved that album, that first album, and I bought tickets and I got it like for $15 and they sold out in like 10 minutes and somehow I got tickets. But like I was blown away at how awesome and how huge the show was for such a small venue. They had like full on light show. Justin Hawkins like had his, his unitard running around. Like he jumped on top of the security guard and was like, who was walking him through the crowd. It was just a super fun show. And like, I remember no one wanted to go with me. And like one of my friends just randomly went and he was like, this was amazing.
I want to see them still, even if they come back.
Now into my best shows. I was telling Joe and Steve, before this about like my setlist.fm list, and they started putting theirs on there. And like, there's so many great shows that I've seen, but for me, like personal best shows. Now I'm thinking about like, I didn't mention like how I saw Herbie Hancock, Michael Brecker, and Roy Hargrove randomly at NJ Pack. That was an amazing show. And like seeing Return to Forever with Bella Fleck. Those were amazing shows. But like for me, the best shows that I can remember like they're great. And I'm going to go in reverse order. So like I kind of did 10. So number 10 is the Daptone Super Soul Review at the Apollo Theater in December of 2014. So Sharon Jones was the headliner. They did 3 nights and they were supposed to record it and film it. And I think they did, but they never released it. So Sharon Jones was the headliner. Charles Bradley went on before her.
Nice.
Antibalas was on before them. Menahan Street Band played. And then they had like, Son and Star and the Como Mamas. But like, it was like 3 straight hours of nonstop music. Like the between bands, it was like there was still a band playing. Like it was just one of these amazing shows. And, Sharon Jones had just come back from battling cancer, and she was just crushing it. And, Charles Bradley was amazing. And, the whole Antibalas was like, I knew of them, but it was just fantastic. We were first row on the first balcony. So it was really great. Number 9 is the Flight of the Conchords at the McKittrick Hotel in New York City, June 2nd, 2016. And this was kind of like a random show. It was one of their warm-up shows for the tour. We actually had tickets to see them in Central Park, which we ended up going to see later that year. But this was like a small venue. And I randomly found out through a friend about it. And we were like right up, almost like you were like 6 feet away from Brett and Jermaine. It was awesome.
Nice.
It was a great show. Number 8 is the Black Crowes at the Tower Theater, which is right outside Philly. This was on their reunion tour. It was an amazing night. Like they just killed it. They played 2 sets, played a lot of deep cuts. It's just one of those great shows. Number 7, Raconteurs at Terminal 5, which I mentioned earlier, which is just awesome. Number 6 was Wilco. My first time I saw Wilco, which was at Terminal 5 in 2012, July 2012. They put on an amazing show. Great set list and great album to see them on. Number 5, Steve was at this show with me, was the
great show.
First time we saw Wolfpack at King's Theater in September 2018. Amazing show. Dave Koz came out and crushed it. And
the crowd was nuts too.
Yeah, the crowd was nuts. It was the second night of a 2-night run. They ended with Outro, which is like one of my favorite songs, and it just was like a great ending. Number 4 for me is a classic Medeski Martin and Wood show at the Morristown Community Theater in Morristown, New Jersey, December 2000. They played 2 full sets. They went like 3 hours. Mark Ribot, this guitar player, was playing with them, came out, and they played like maybe a total of like 10, 12 songs through the course of the night. They did like a 15-minute rendition of Third Stone from the Sun by Hendrix. It was awesome. Number 3, Ben Folds 5, Central Park Summer Stage, New York City. They had a full string section, full horn section. It was awesome. Number 2 is Ben Folds solo, Town Hall on his first solo tour. Town Hall is great, as Steve mentioned, great venue, just super energetic, like amazing show. And this was right after 9/11, so I was home for Thanksgiving. It was a really powerful show. Number 1 show, which I could, any of these shows really could be number 1, was first time I saw Medeski, Schofield, Martin, and Wood. So Medeski, Martin, Wood played with John Schofield, who was a jazz guitar player. They had released their first album as this group, even though MMW played with Schofield on his album Go Go. And 930 Club, I didn't mention this, but it's my favorite venue ever. Like the greatest venue. I've seen probably the most shows there because I lived down there, went to school down there for a while. Greatest venue. It was musically probably the tightest show I had ever seen. Like MMW usually goes off on like tangent. They were just locked in with Schofield. They played 2 sets and a full encore. And what made it even better was a friend of mine, she works for the Kennedy Center, and she was able to grab free tickets to the show. It was sold out. And I'm like, can you get tickets for this? I'll be down in town. And she was like, sure enough, she got tickets. And
wow,
that time frame, that November 2006, I went on a run of shows in 1 month. November 3rd, saw the Black Keys at Nokia Theater. November 8th, saw Black Crowes at Starland Ballroom, which that was another memorable show. They went 3 hours or like 2. It was like they just went on and on. It was like the last show of their tour. So they're like, we're just going to keep playing. So Medeski, Schofield, Martin Wood at 9:30, and then randomly saw Ben Folds at the Beacon Theater. So like 4 shows in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So that was a great run for me. But yeah, that Medeski, Schofield, Martin Wood show, I just remember coming out of it and be like, it wasn't like anything like super high energy. It was just like, this is the best show I've ever seen.
Wow.
Like this is the best, musically the best show I've ever seen. With one of my favorite bands, to play. So that's my little, snippet history. A couple of artists I would love to have seen live. Obviously, Jimi Hendrix Experience is like up there.
Yeah.
The band in their prime, I would have loved to have seen. Obviously, the Beatles, like these, they're the classic bands. But a band that you mentioned, Steve, that I really wish I had a chance to see is REM.
Yeah.
I wish I had gotten to see them. So great. And, I've been lucky enough to see a lot of bands I thought I never would see live, like Return to Forever. Like who would have thought they would have gotten back together? The Police, never thought I would have, seen them.
Yep.
Even like seeing Toad the Wet Sprocket because they, broke up when I was a teenager. I'm like, oh, they're never going, that kind of thing. So I've been lucky enough to see a lot of great bands that I would have been on my bucket list that, that came back. So, I can't wait to see shows. I can't wait to play shows, and I'm looking forward to, doing all that. So now, as we always do at the end of the show, we are going to talk about what we've been listening to. And this time around, Steve, why don't you go first? What have you been really digging lately?
The other day, it's been a month where I was driving in and out of the city for work. And one day my dad recommended this band Squid out of the UK. And I've kind of been on this UK music kick because, I don't know, in my opinion, they're just doing a lot in the rock world, in the soul world, and just in general. Like, I've just been really impressed. So I checked out this song called Houseplants that I guess was like kind of a hit on BBC Radio and over in the UK. I had never heard of it. My dad must have heard it on his like college radio. So I played it and I really loved it. And then of course I saw there's a new album that they've worked on that they finished during the pandemic. And it was just like described as, controlled chaos and very exciting. So the song is called Narrator.
I'm trying real hard.
And basically, the way I've been describing it to people, including I mentioned to Joe, I said it's post-punk infused rock and roll, but it almost has an LCD Sound System edge to it, and yet Modest Mouse, the singer Brock, kind of has that kind of vibe to it. So just love the song. It's over 8 minutes, but it doesn't really feel over long.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it has this really crazy, blissful, angry crescendo at the end with this girl singer that is the guest. To me, it just rocks, and it made me immediately pre-order the album. It's called Bright Green Field, and it drops in May. And so on, I think it was 2 Bandcamp Fridays ago that I pre-ordered, so it's in.
That's awesome. Yeah, you sent me, I think this song or one of their songs, maybe it was House Party. It sounded really cool. Definitely up my alley. I gotta check that out more.
And then on the soul front, I have been extremely excited and beside myself to receive the 2 Salt albums. Untitled Rise to me was, my top albums of the year. And still to this day, I'm still listening to that album on repeat. So when I got the album, the song's Strong. It's the opening track. And it's a journey is kind of how I describe it, if that makes any sense, because it's layered. There's flutes, there's drum breakdowns, there's solos, there's these insane harmonies and vocals. And the thing about Salt that is always drawn me, aside from the fact that they kind of came out of nowhere for us through Rob's list and a bunch of other, top 10 lists or whatever, is that I couldn't find any live performances. They're very mysterious.
Did you say they were a collective or something?
Yeah, they're a collective.
Yeah, there's no information on
there's
actual
nothing.
members. It's
yeah,
amazing.
The only thing that I knew was Michael Kiwanuka had guested on one of the tracks.
Yeah.
Otherwise, sometimes in the songs they sound American, some songs they sound British. So it's very intriguing to me. So yeah, that song has just been on repeat. And then the last track is a song by Sven Wonder, one of the artists last year that Adam turned me on to. And I kind of went back and forth on which song to recommend because I guess they released 2 albums in 2020, but this one is from the album he picked. It's I think the one before the last one, but the song is called Hanami. So the album is Wabi Sabi, and again, the whole album is really great. Both albums actually are really great. And it's a guy from Sweden, and Sven Wonder is his alias. But to me, the song and the whole album kind of sounds like Mediterranean music meets Japanese music.
Cool.
And a lot of it is funky, and I don't know, this song specifically to me is like a soundtrack to a 70s spy film with Curtis Mayfield producing or something. So yeah, it's good loungy music. It's good just driving music. I was telling Joe to make a good bed for his radio show. So
yeah, definitely. I have to remember to download some of that. I listened to some of the other album was Eastern Flowers because Aquarium Drunkard had it on their year-end list. That was the only reason I heard of it. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. So,
it's a good album too.
Yes.
All right, Joe, what about you?
So for my first pick, this year in 2021, the band that I've listened to the most has been the OCs by far. I've just been loving everything they've been putting out. And this pick is from a new live set that they dropped back in January called Live at Henry Miller Library, recorded in Big Sur, California. It was recorded back in December for a ticketed streaming event, and then they dropped it via Bandcamp in January. It's just a killer, badass rock and roll set. They don't hold back. They just kill it. 20 songs, 3 songs I've never played live before, apparently, and also 3 Black Flag covers, including a really cool version of Nervous Breakdown. And the entire set was also filmed video. You can see it on YouTube. The entire set is up there. And they also just did a Levitation Sessions Volume 2, which was amazing. Levitations actually was the Austin Psych Fest. It was renamed Levitation. They've been doing a lot of cool stuff during the pandemic with different bands, including the Black Angels, the OCs. And there's a new one coming up with Fuzz, who I talk a lot about on the podcast as well, featuring Ty Segall at the end of April. My second pick is from a new artist called Sugar Mill Slim. He just dropped his debut, self-titled debut record, and he's described himself on Facebook as glammed up blues harmonica punk from Los Angeles. I like that description. That pretty much describes what he is. Very old school vibe, very like old school Chicago 60s blues, Paul Butterfield band thing going on. He has great harmonica playing. It's a digital only release on Bandcamp, but this song that I picked is an instrumental called Screamin'. And the third pick today is a new single from the band The Tarantinos. It's called Durango Twist. It's out on a brand new record label called Diddy Wah Records down in Nashville, which is run by Reno Bow, who used to play in the Mooney Suzuki.
Oh, there was a song of his that I found on Spotify one time that I really loved. I remember
awesome.
what song it was. But
yeah, I know I think he had something last year or 2019.
It was like, 2 years ago, I think.
He had another band he was putting together, but I'm a sucker for like 60s surf vibe, like Pulp Fiction soundtrack, Dick Dale, and this completely has that. And I think that's why the band is called the Tarantinos. It's like a wink to Quentin Tarantino, as it would totally fit on a Quentin Tarantino soundtrack. It's perfect. It's an instrumental. I've played it a lot on my radio show, and they have a few other singles that they came out with. I think they have 3 or 4 now. Right now it's only digital. I hope there's going to be like a 7-inch release in the future, but this is the Tarantino's Durango Twist. And Josh, what are you listening to?
So recently, it's sometimes I don't get really into new music. So recently I went back and decided to, for whatever reason, give The Jam another listen to. I haven't listened to them in a while. I really, didn't know much about them until I saw the documentary that was released, I think, in 2015. That's called About the Young Idea, which was if you haven't seen it, it's fantastic. There's interviews with everyone in the band, including Paul Weller.
I have to watch that. I started it and never finished it. I know you talked about it before too. I gotta see it.
It got me into the band, and so I was at work the other day and just decided to go back and listen to the Jam, because I kind of been wanting to get one of their albums on vinyl, and their first album, In the City. title track in the city is just like, it's so great. Like that first
Yes.
album is just so energetic. It's,
Yep.
you know, it's really rock solid. And there's, whereas some of their later albums kind of, you know, diverged, but this one is just like, you know, straight ahead, mod, punk, rock. In the City's just, it's probably the best song on the album. And it's just one of those great, raw, energetic tunes and from a very underappreciated band, at least here in the United States.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool cover too.
Yeah, I play that song a lot on my radio show. I love it. I always go back to it. Like when I need like a fast punk song,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, In the City or The Jam. It's great. It's,
I mean, I love the song "Town Called Malice," you know, but that's
Sure.
from like their last. But that I listened to that last, you know, album, and it's kind of like all over the place, and you know, not
never
you know,
heard it.
too structured.
I'll check it
But
out.
yeah, it's. I mean, actually, I almost bought it on vinyl, and then I had it in Discogs in my shopping cart, and then because it was just from some person. And then
Sold.
it went away because there's like you can't find that record anywhere like in any of the stores. You know, it's only in Europe, I guess. The next thing that I've been listening to is the latest solo album from the pianist from Dawes. His name is Lee Pardini. The album is called Homebodies. This is a digital only release right now. I really hope he does release it in physical form. It's a straight up jazz album, but it's really well done. Like it's not, you know, it's definitely contemporary jazz with a lot of, you know, influences from the past, but it's just solid throughout. Like it's great piano work, great tunes. He's got a lot of guys who come in and help him out. The drummer from Dawes, actually Griffin Goldsmith, plays on the entire album. And if you have listened to Dawes, you would not expect that drummer to be playing all this jazz stuff.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic player. But, you know, the song that I really love off the album, which is kind of the only one like it, is ETA. And it's definitely one of the more funkier albums. It definitely sounds like a 1970s fusion album, maybe that like Chick Corea or Herbie Hancock would be playing. It's got like, you know, a electric piano sound going that he's playing on versus most of the other tracks are acoustic piano. But it's really great.
That's awesome.
And the last track I've been digging, and mainly because of, you know, recently, you know, watching their performance on the Grammys, Haim, who I actually, you know, I knew about them, but didn't really get into them until we did the end of the year Mitchum episode, you know, in December. And I was looking at his list, and their album was like near the top of, you know, that aggregate. So I was like, all right, let me go through it and listen. I've heard about them. And it just kind of blew me away of how great it was. And then, you know, I was talking to my sister-in-law who works at Pandora Sirius, is a music director over there. And she's like, yeah, their first album is phenomenal as well. And so I, you know, went back and was for a while, I was just listening to Haim a lot. You know, their latest album, Women in Music Part 3, I guess it was up for, you know, a couple Grammy nods in somewhere. And they just recently did a bunch of songs they collaborated with. They redid and added Taylor Swift on that, a bunch of them too, including the track that I, you know, really like, which is Gasoline.
We're watching the sunrise from the kitchen counter. When you're laying between my legs, it doesn't matter. You say you wanna go slower, but I wanna go faster. Faster and faster.
One of their more laid-back, stripped-down tracks on the album, but it really just kind of showcases their songwriting ability and the playing of the three sisters. And as good as the version on the record is, the live performance from Jimmy Kimmel is just the three of them and a pianist in a parking lot, and they just record it straight up live, and it sounds freaking amazing.
Cool.
So, you know, the track Gasoline is definitely fantastic.
Did you ever see the live cover of Oh Well on YouTube?
Yeah, I was watching. I think it was a Glastonbury.
Yeah, like a festival.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like that was part of their whole
like-
set. Yeah,
Yeah, and they just destroy they're
Yeah.
really rocking out, like their
Okay.
stage moves, and it's like really crazy rock. It's pretty funny because I don't picture them like that. But when I
Yeah.
watched it, like wow, they were really good. I deep down, I wish I did more of that. I like
Sure.
they're doing well, and they're obviously what they're doing. But like I'm like I want them to like rock out like that.
Yeah.
At that Glastonbury
I'm
Festival.
assuming that like, it would be, I would definitely want to go see them live. I feel like they would be a great live
Yeah,
show.
definitely.
They're, very
Yeah,
energetic.
totally.
Very talented.
I forget the sister's name who plays bass, but she definitely has like some of the greatest faces when she's playing. Like,
Yeah.
And they're just, super talented, and their songs are really good. So that's it for this episode of Dad Rocks. Thanks for listening to part 2 of our deep dive into concerts. Hopefully you already listened to part 1, but if you didn't, we definitely suggest that you go back and check it out. We had a great time talking to Adam Schenker about his concert going experiences over the years, and he has some pretty great stories that we all think you will enjoy. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast and tell your fellow music-loving dads or moms or anyone really to check it out. And if you like or even love the podcast, go ahead and give us an honest review. Those reviews and those ratings do help us. So please give us those reviews if you so choose to. We would be so thankful. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter, both at Dad Rocks Pod, and also on Facebook by searching up Dad Rocks !podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or any show ideas for us, or just want to give us a shout, you can always email us at dadrockspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Also, we have a Spotify playlist of all of the music you have heard on this podcast today, which should be linked in the podcast description. Now, I may be jinxing things, but right now we have at least 1, maybe 2 really special guests lined up for the show. So be on the lookout for those in the coming weeks. Though if you subscribe already, they'll just pop up when we release them. It's up to you if you really want to subscribe or not, but maybe you should for these upcoming episodes. They're going to be really good. Anyway, thanks again for listening, and remember, dads, you rock.